Welcome into the latest edition of the Spot Track Podcast. Brandon Kravitz here, along with Mike Ginnitti. This episode presented by Bettor Edge. If you're tired of taking on the house, Bettor Edge is your spot. The premier social betting marketplace, betting the best lines possible. Certainly a profitable endeavor as you dip into football season. Money lines, totals, spreads. You can also build out competitions for you, your friends, or your business. Create company-wide pools. Tons of fun over at bettoredge.com, and they'll give you $20 to play around with. Just use the promo code SPOTTRACK at sign up over at bettoredge.com. It is here, Mike. Eagles Cowboys tonight, the Super Bowl of financial contrasts. Any big plans other than locking in for this divisional matchup?
Not too much. I like to really reflect on the offseason this week as much as possible. So I've been throwing out all sorts of data points and, futures in terms of financials with the teams and how the starting quarterbacks look. And, there's a pretty nice separation between Dallas and Philadelphia, by the way, in terms of the finances. So that's kind of where I live, and just to kind of understand what this thing might look like. Because you look at the money leaves a breadcrumb trail, and a lot of teams have put a lot of effort into at least putting themselves into contention for week one and certainly through the next 18 weeks. So we'll see what we get tonight. I know Dallas is a big talking point with how they kind of finished this offseason. But, man, don't forget, Philly started this offseason with a bang, an absolute bang. A Barkley contract out of nowhere, a bunch of offensive line moves. There's dead cap on this roster. There's tons of void years on this roster. They're aggressive as any team in football. So, in terms of the neck of the woods that I live in, the Eagles are kind of the poster child for what we do here.
And it could have been even more aggressive. I don't know if you've seen the latest news. I imagine that you have. Adam Schefter has reported that the Eagles were one of the teams that made a strong offer to Dallas. And it sounds to me, just reading between the lines, like it's an offer that Dallas really liked. They just didn't like the idea of sending him to Philadelphia. But Philly's going to Philly. I just think it's so Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles to even pick up the phone. The audacity to make that phone call is why we love him as a GM.
You make that phone call to make Jerry Jones feel terrible about himself, right? You know you're not getting a yes, but you make that phone call to say, hey, I just want you to know that we're obviously interested because this guy's a top 5 player. And because of how we structure our contracts, we can make it work tomorrow. We could pay this guy tomorrow. My owner's giving me the sign off. Everything I need to have happen has happened. So I'm making this phone call. It's just a testament to how they do business. You can say it's reckless and, the crow is going to come home to roost at some point. Of course it's going to, but not this year. Not this year. They've got cap space. They've got draft picks, and they've got arguably the deepest, best roster in football. And that will be on display tonight. No question about it.
How about the smear campaign that came out of Frisco, Texas after Micah Parsons got traded? This isn't the kind of stuff that you typically hear about while a guy is on the roster because everybody's staying quiet, buttoned up and, team first. But it seems like there was a clear plan inside of the office of that building to say, we're going to trade him, and then we're going to make it look like it was a really, really good idea.
Well, I mean, the stop the run stuff aside, which I will not get to. I will say this. There's a couple Dallas people that I follow closely, have followed for years. I've had them on the podcast a couple times that were alluding to this well before this trade ever went down, Brandon, that there was definitely some discontent, that Micah Parsons was rubbing people the wrong way. The second he launched his podcast, there was some friction that even the big players, the people that are important to this franchise, had some issues with. So I don't think it's too out of left field this time. Now, look, anytime a move like this happens, there's some carnage coming. This happens in all sports, right? There's a lot of stuff that's been buttoned up or locked up that eventually will come out for clickbait. But I do think this one actually had some merit in that there's some people that are probably a little bit relieved that this guy's not on the roster. They're gonna reverse that take about 4 to 5 weeks in when they can't get to the quarterback at all, and they're gonna be losing 35 to 31 generally week in and week out this season.
But hey, you won't be able to run on them. So, they got that going for them. I know
Kenny Clark is that guy, man.
I mean, he's good. You covered this extensively earlier in the week. If you guys want to check that out, a full hour of a Micah Parsons breakdown. You guys did a phenomenal job with that. I learned so much in listening to that conversation. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but just one other follow-up as far as the Micah Parsons stuff goes, because that probably is the biggest talking point going into tonight, outside of the fact that the Eagles raise a banner, is that Micah Parsons is not on the Cowboys anymore. Are you surprised that it was the Packers that ponied up for him? Because it just seems like something that they wouldn't typically do.
Yeah, if you're just talking about the football product and the windows of contention and teams that generally try to load up, they make perfect sense. They're in that group of like 8 or 9 teams that would probably have picked up the phone. Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City, certainly the Philadelphia. They're in that group in terms of betting odds, right? But you're alluding to the fact that they don't sign contracts like this. They don't structure contracts like this. They don't go after haymaker players like this, because the second you put pen to paper, you're just bleeding money. It. Even if the player is top 5 in the league, worthy of everything that he's going to be worthy of, you're pissing away money to put a player like this on your payroll. So yes, in that regard, Green Bay surprised me. And even the people close to Green Bay did not see this coming. They wanted it to happen, but they know the team generally doesn't allow these kind of things to happen. So it's a surprise in that regard. And it's a surprise that could win them a Super Bowl, because there's a lot of tea leaves coming out of all the betting markets and even the real football analysts saying this could be the one piece that puts them over the top.
Well, what's interesting about that is the graph that you put out. I'm fascinated by team build, and the most important thing you can do in building a roster is how you spend money at the top 3. And the Green Bay Packers, who are this thought of as this sort of slow and steady, not aggressive team, they rank number 1 in terms of top 3 total value for contracts. So perhaps this contract is a big reason why, but perhaps this is a perception shift, or maybe a slap in the face with reality that Green Bay is a lot more committed than we realize.
Well, I'm glad you referenced this table that I put out. Yeah, again, it's the top 3 average salaries on every roster combined, and what that looks like for 2025. Certainly Micah vaulted Green Bay to the top, but did you notice that they are now rolling with 2 extremely heavily paid edge defenders, right? I mean, it's Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary as 2 of their top 3 contracts. Obviously, Jordan Love is the first. There's no other team in football doing that, putting that much money, putting that much of their pot invested into their edge rush, because they do have value at the wide receiver position and things like that. So it's a testament to what they're still trying to do. Some people might call that old school. We'll see if that pays off in the end. And I do want one more point here. Dallas is 4th on this list because they went and signed Deron Bland. They have Dak, they have CD. They've got massive contracts still. But if they had gone the route of Dak, CD, and Micah, even at that $45 million per year 6-year contract that Jerry had offered, they would have been at $140 million for their top 3 contracts, which would have exceeded the rest of the league by over $15 million. So again, I said it on Monday's podcast. I'll reiterate it here. Sometimes not signing these contracts works out better. And I think Jerry just got to that point. Like, look, I get myself 2 legitimate first-round picks. I can get a player who can play for us tomorrow in Kenny Clark. And we don't have an astronomical payroll, which is exactly what they were about to step into.
I not that anybody asked, but I think the trade was a good idea. I actually support the Cowboys' decision. I'm surprised they didn't get a little bit more, but also the Packers had to pony up for that big contract, which is always going to suppress what you get back in a deal. But it's not like, I agree with your point that the Cowboys needed to be honest with themselves about what they were going to be this season. And just because a player is great doesn't mean that you necessarily trust him with $100 million and what that can mean for the future. The only issue I have with this whole thing is that Jerry Jones tried to say that their team is better. That's it. That's the only problem I have.
And the only reason he has to say that stuff, Brandon, is because it's September. If he had owned up to the situation he was in February and March, he's got 3 first-round picks, he's got 2 players, and he's got a blossoming franchise with brand new first-round draft picks, because it would have been 2025 picks, right? Yeah. Brand new draft picks that he could now tout out there and throw out there and say, look, we have a ton of hope with what we've just done in this draft, and we're going to have more of it in 2026 because we've got first-round picks, multiple first-round picks over the course of the next 3 drafts. He doesn't have that right now. All he's got is a wish list and a mediocre team heading into the opening game September 4th, Thursday night. So he put himself in this position because of timing, and that is just something we've said way too much about the Dallas Cowboys for the past half decade.
When you look at this table of the top 3 contracts for each team, I think this is the best way to learn about how a team is built, what their identity is. Maybe that's the best word for it, is based on where they spend most of their money. You can also tell whether or not a team is good, because usually if you hit on those top 3, everything else tends to fall in line. Now, you go to the Cleveland Browns, their top 3 players are Deshaun Watson, Myles Garrett, and Denzel Ward. Well, 2 out of the 3 there are a miss. So they're a bad football team. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and then the mix of Lane Johnson and Devontae Smith. Well, there's their identity. Tough quarterback, good offensive line play, a stud wide receiver or 2, and boom, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're all doing their part to contribute to this roster. Do you feel like this is one of those things that if anybody's curious about how good a team actually is, this is where you need to look first? Top 3 contracts, where are you spending your money?
I'll say it probably tells about 2/3 of the story, because obviously what this doesn't include is the teams that have hit lightning in a bottle, right? So Denver with Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels in Washington, Houston and CJ, the teams that are playing with house money right now because they've hit on that first round quarterback. So obviously I don't want to exclude them, but to your point, the teams that are expensive are probably expensive because they have hit on a quarterback and have paid that quarterback, which is, the second best place to be in. You've got a guy, you've decided to pay him, you've got a five-year window with your heavily paid quarterback, and that's why we're focusing on teams like Dallas, where Dak's contract, which is the top contract in football, looks like an albatross right now because of his play, because of the roster construction, because of all these things we've been talking about for a bunch of years now. So, we're going to know a hell of a lot more about some of these situations quickly, like Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, like Dak and Dallas. Obviously, we the coffin has been brought out for Deshaun in the Cleveland situation. Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville is another situation where we're monitoring. These are high-paid teams with top 3 heavy, but the quarterback stuff is iffy. So we'll see where we land about week 8 with this stuff. But yeah, to start the year, half the league is on the top, half the league is on the bottom, and you've only got really 2 or 3 teams operating with true value, at least to start the year.
Juwan Jennings gets a pay bump ahead of week 1 with the 49ers. It looks like an incentive-laden deal. Yeah. Do you have the bones of this? And
not yet.
Okay.
No, not yet, but he did have escalators built into his contract, Brandon, which my guess is they just took those escalators, figured out the line that made them not likely to be earned. So, 900 and some yards and 80 catches and all the things.
Just lowered the threshold.
Yep, to make it so that it doesn't hit the cap yet, but they're going to be able to get to a point where if he is this player again, he'll be making that $3 million pretty much within reason. The problem is that only makes him a $10.5 million player for 2025, and he's 28 years old, and we know where that story gets to. He's probably worthy of upwards of 20 to 22 million this year if he's the guy. And we don't know that he's going to be. If Brandon Ayuk returns healthy, if Ricky Pearsall takes a step forward, we'll see where we get to. And there's another situation like this, just a tangent quickly. Jacoby Myers is in the exact same boat with the Raiders right now. They didn't really replace him. They drafted some players with some hope that you can put some future stock into, but Jacoby Myers is going to be the top target for Geno Smith outside of Brock Bowers heading into 2025, and he's on an $11 million salary expiring contract. So look for them to do something very similar to what San Francisco just done with Jennings over the course of the next couple of days here.
But Jennings does become a free agent.
They both do. They both are expiring contracts, yes.
So we kind of have a baseline of what that looks like then of somebody that's starting to age out but is still really productive. Cooper Kupp signed a 3-year, $45 million contract with the Seahawks in the offseason, 17.5 fully guaranteed. It looks like that's sort of the bar for those guys, that if Jennings and Jacoby Myers have a good season, they'll be looking at a contract like that elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. No question. He wants to be a number 1. He hasn't shown yet that he can truly be that number 1, but we'll see this year. He might have a baller year with Geno Smith. You never know.
I'm actually growing some optimism for that Raiders offense. Watch out. This Kawhi Leonard story has all sorts of tangled webs within it. We've got to talk about this situation. A circumventing of the cap, potentially. The Clippers have been accused of circumventing the NBA salary cap by a tune of $28 million for a no-show job. This according to Pablo Torre, who has become Quite the investigative podcaster out there, changing the game. Good for you, Pablo. What do you make of this story in general?
That I hope it's not as real as it seems to be, because if it's real, Brandon, Steve Ballmer just doesn't care, right? Because if these details are actually true and he invested in this company and he sent these text messages that basically aren't covering up anything, right? There are text messages that say, hey, don't mention this too much because we're circumventing the salary cap. If he went to the lengths of actually saying that out loud, he just clearly doesn't care. He's too rich to care about ramifications, right? And we've seen that before, unfortunately. But, the evidence is damning. Is it evidence enough to be able to connect the dots back to a place where the NBA can find that they've circumvented the cap? I don't think so. And I'm completely speculating. But what it's going to do, bare minimum, is it has now inspired plenty of other use cases, okay? And I'm not going to name too many names, but look, James Harden took a pay cut. Jalen Brunson took a pay cut, etc.
He was already mentioned by Pablo
okay?
on the several shows that he went on after this announcement.
Yeah.
And I think Jalen Brunson will be the next. He'll have the spotlight put on him next.
So there's a lot of owners and maybe some front office people right now, biting their tongues and, tightening their whats, because they know that Pablo, investigator Pablo, has now opened a ball of wax, and that ball of wax may trickle down to some other players.
It was $113 million pay cut is what Pablo Torre was calling it for Jalen Brunson.
Yeah,
do you think stuff like this is common across sports, and would the NBA be the most guilty of it?
I think it's common in a legal manner. You know what I mean? Like, it's possible for agents to go to local markets, right? So Jalen Brunson is going to a big city in New York. There's a million spots to find endorsement deals that can help his cause, right? And can reach him back up to a near max salary with the combination of off-field endorsements plus what he earns on the court from the Knicks. It's completely legal to go and find those sponsorships. When it gets murky is when the owner of the franchise is heavily invested in said endorsement deal company, right? And then that company goes to, has CEO that goes to jail and things that go down the hill from there. But there's just ways to do this legally that I can't believe that Steve Ballmer actually went this route. And if it's the case, look out. I mean, we're talking a half a decade of first round picks about to be taken away from the Clippers, plus millions of dollars, plus the voiding of contracts and who knows what thereafter. We've all seen it happen before, years past. So it's right there in the CBA. You can read it. But if it's really this blatantly done, shame on them, and they're gonna get a massive undertaking from the league.
Well, it's not money well spent by the Clippers. So I think this isn't going to be something. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think this is something that's going to have NBA fans up in arms, because the Clippers are already on the cap overpaying for what Kawhi Leonard is giving them in terms of wins in the postseason, which is why you sign a guy to a $150 million contract. So if they're paying him extra, that's just Steve Ballmer lighting money on fire. And
just a tangent on that. Yeah. It sounds like, and I don't want to speculate, but there's been some good work done here. It sounds like Kawhi's uncle, who's heavily involved in his negotiation process, just basically put this out there when he became a free agent and said, look, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for the max salary, and we're looking for, the side piece, and we're looking for cars and access to private jets and all this stuff that was, by the way, brought up in a 2019 investigation on Kawhi Leonard when he originally was a free agent, and then came back around when it was time for an extension with the Clippers. So it sounds like that there is some internal stuff with Kawhi and his party and his agencies and things like that have brought this to light, that have made this a thing that could become a very, very big process for the NBA to investigate. And again, what I don't hope, what NBA fans should be terrified of right now is just how deep-rooted is this in other cases, because, as we've seen with baseball and the gambling stuff, Brandon, if it's one, it's probably 12, right? So unfortunately, this is probably not a done story. When it wins a team a championship is when people will have a real problem with it. Yeah. Let's get to our quick hits to wrap today's episode. Kalen DeBoer is in hot water in Alabama after losing to Florida State. They got absolutely smashed in that game in Tallahassee. His buyout is,
I'm just going to assume the most searched phrase in Alabama this week. I don't actually know that, but common sense would tell you. He's owed a whopping $70 million. In today's world of college football, if you have a big-time college football program, a desperate fan base, does a program pay that kind of money in order to satiate the fans, or is it still too much?
So this might surprise you, this answer, but I don't consider Alabama a top wealthy school. I know that they are a top SEC school in terms of what they've been able to do on the field, but when I think about teams that are pumping 30 to 40 to 50 million into their rosters every season, I don't consider Alabama to be one of them. And it starts with the quarterback position, right? They don't necessarily have one of the top 5 quarterbacks in every single class, right? They operate differently. They operate on the lines. They operate on the defensive side of the ball. There's generally a massive running back and a wide receiver or two. So the money's going to add up quickly, but they don't have a $10 million quarterback out there every year. You know what I mean? Like other schools do. And they're not a big, oil run backed, organization. They don't have the Texas money, and the Michigan money. So I don't see a world in any regard where they fire him right now during season. Now, look, if this is a nightmare of a season and it gets to after 2025, that buyout only drops to 60. All right, I did the math on his actual contract. He's got 63 and change left on his contract after this season, and 90% of all the remaining contract becomes the buyout. So it's $60 million to buy him out, even if they go 4-7 this season, and they know they have to fire him. So they might have to pay 60 because they might have to do it from a football standpoint at that point in time. But right now, mid-season, I don't see it happening.
So The Athletic did a story on the top program valuations, and This is all projections, but Alabama is 6th. To your point, though, this is based on football revenue. What you're talking about is booster money, for which we have zero calculation of, other than just common sense of oil Texas money and those that graduate from Michigan with a law degree, like those. It seems like what we're starting to see is Alabama makes a lot of money and they spend a lot of money, but are they bringing in from their support groups? Are they bringing in as much as their competitors? It does feel like that is shifting. And unfortunately, in your world where you like to track these dollars cent for cent, you just can't. No, it's just, you can't do that. So I know that makes college football very difficult in terms of actually understanding where these dollars are going.
Is it more likely that Alabama wins a national championship or becomes irrelevant in the next 10 years?
I think irrelevant would be. Win a so they can win a championship or become irrelevant, and I get 10 years.
10 years.
I think I would say win a championship.
You think you think they'll find a coach that can turn this around quickly?
They did it with Saban. The Alabama was dead before they found Nick Saban. This is a program and a state that is committed to winning football games. They will, if it's not Kalen DeBoer, they'll find somebody else that'll do it. I'll give them 10 years. The Red Zone channel will no longer be 7 hours of commercial-free football. Limited commercial breaks will be added. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but my question to you is this an end of an era or just proper business, or both?
It's just got to be the latter, right? And I know that's annoying, and I get it, but it's not like this is an amendment to anything else that's happening now. Everything is streaming, right? At some point in time, everything you watch is going to be streamed and collaborative and all the things that Red Zone's become. In fact, we're pretty positive that the new ESPN system, as we mentioned, is going to have 3 or 4 versions of this at some point in time. So you might as well just kind of bury the lead now and build the business model into it today, because I think we're just going to see the majority of these types of systems have these kind of things. And by the way, everybody needs a bathroom break. Right? Go have a bathroom break.
Exactly.
Go get another beer out of the fridge. Do something with it. Instead of being negative about it, turn it into a positive.
Turn to your family. Tell them you love them. Go get a drink. Scott Hansen has to pee too, people. Okay. No, I completely agree. Talk about first world problems, Mike. If this is what's stressing you out in the world, I think you're doing all right. I have a list of the least and most expensive hot dogs this season at NFL stadiums. We talk dollars and cents on this podcast. It's not just players. It is also all beef Franks. Would you like to take a guess at the most expensive or the least expensive? I'll let you go in either direction here in terms of you're at the concession stand, how much you're paying for a standard hot dog.
I have
get this, by the way.
I should?
Yeah.
Well, I think is Buffalo the least expensive?
Not even close.
Are you serious?
They're the most expensive.
Get the hell out of here. That makes no sense.
Okay, well, you're going to have to, then you can debunk this, and I will send you the tweet, and you can tell Dov Kleinman that he's lying. $11.25 for a hot dog at the Bills Stadium.
Okay, so here's why I believe, by the way, I can't not believe it, but here's why, because I'm local to this. Number one, there's a provider of hot dogs here that is it's like a monopoly, right? So and they sponsor everything. So, but also my initial thought was like Chicago or Texas, who puts loads of things on top of a hot dog. Buffalo has a hot dog that is, here's your bun, here's your hot dog. You go do the rest with whatever you're going to do. It's not like we have some famous loaded hot dog here. It's just a freaking hot dog. So if you're paying $11.75 for a plain hot dog here, you're better off just going to get a Chicago dog or something, right? And getting some bang for buck.
Chicago is above the league average at $7.86. League average is about $7, but the Falcons have the cheapest hot dogs, $2.
So that's on purpose. Do you know do you know that deal?
Yeah.
The concessions are all bare minimum cost there because the owner Arthur Blank does it that way. That's still one of the best stories in sports.
It really makes sense. Nobody is more committed to giving you an affordable hot dog than Arthur Blank, because he also owns Home Depot, and that is the best deal in America, is going to Home Depot, getting a hot dog.
Damn,
a little hot dog cart.
We're building the commercials into the quick hits this year.
Well, there's no better way for me to swan song this episode than a free Home Depot plug. No, I'm not taking a job with Home Depot. I have a great opportunity in front of me. I would tell you, because I don't really like to gatekeep information about my life when I'm announcing things like this, but it hasn't been announced by the company that I'm going to start pulling some heavy lifting for here in a moment. I'll let them announce it, and you can follow me on social at Brandon Kravitz. But because of a new schedule that will start next week, this will be my final episode of the Spot Track podcast. We've been doing this for, well over a year, maybe 2 years together at this point. You giving me this opportunity to hop on your platform. You have built such an incredible following. Everybody that I talk to that looks up a contract about anything, they go straight to you. And the fact that I have been loosely affiliated with your brand for the last couple of years, it's done wonders for me. So I thank you. I thank all the listeners that have reached out over the years and told me how much they enjoy the podcast. So it is with a heavy heart that I say goodbye to all of you.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a blast for me. And I'll just say this about your new gig. I bet it's going to go great.
I certainly hope you're right. We definitely need some winners with the new opportunity that's out there. I can tell you this, that some of the wagers that will be placed in the future publicly will be on bettoredge.com. So let's go ahead and lay out our Bettor Edge bet of the week to wrap this episode. We can take, we have an entire NFL slate in front of us. You are in the heart of Buffalo. Biggest game of the week. Buffalo Bills hosting the Baltimore Ravens. So if you want to take the Bills, they're sitting at +1.5 right now. Home underdogs. I know Baltimore is going to be good, but I kind of like the Buffalo side. It seems like the smart money will be on Baltimore for what it's worth. Total coin flip game. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm going to ride with the Bills here. I'm gonna take the homer bet as our final swan song bet of the week, and you can have that Lamar Jackson Derrick Henry combo.
You did have Ohio State you had Texas last week, didn't you?
No, I had Ohio State.
You had Ohio State.
Yeah,
I had Texas. Yeah. All right, off to a great start. I'm gonna need this win.
Yeah, this new job ain't looking great for you.
I'll be back in no time. Okay, that's why I said it's bye for now. This episode has been presented by Bettor Edge. Sign up, try it out, bet with your friends, bet with us. Use the promo code SpotTrack at sign up over at bettoredge.com or on the Bettor Edge app. Do us a favor, subscribe and rate the pod that you're enjoying right now, and make sure you visit SpotTrack.com for all the latest in the sports contractual world. Thank you for allowing me to be part of the Spot Track family. Till next time.
Good luck.